Now, let's start off with one of the biggest debates to spring up in the wake of the coronavirus shutdown, whether or not to open up our interstate borders. The idea that Australian states could close off their borders to people from other states has astounded me from the start. Tasmania was the first to do this, and I predicted then that while they were shutting off travel to avoid additional infections, they'd be quick to look for help from Canberra or the other states if there was an outbreak on the Apple Isle. Sure enough, they had that outbreak around Launceston and they called in the ADF to help out. So they shut off their borders when it suits them and they asked for federal help when they wanted it. It's the same for the other states, of course, South Australia, Western Australia, Queensland, and let's throw in the Northern Territory as well. They're happy to take payments and tax subsidies from Canberra. In other words, they're happy to be subsidised by New South Wales and Victorian taxpayers. They just want to keep Victorians and New South Welshmen away. Stay out, but send us your taxes. Little wonder that over time, with the infection curve crushed now around the country, a lot of media started to see the absurdity of all this.
Let me clarify with you. Are you still saying that there is no medical reason for internal borders to be closed?
That remains my view, Tracy, although I've been very clear from the outset that, of course, the border closures are really a matter for states and territories.
Open our borders now. That's the message from doctors and business leaders to get the country moving and save jobs.
But despite the pressure, most of our states and territory leaders are still refusing to budge. Infectious diseases expert Dr Clay Golgi is one of many medical experts calling for borders to reopen.
This is all now pretty under control. I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but it's probably unconstitutional what the premiers are doing. I think they've got too much power. I think it's become too political. They've got too much hubris.
It is maddening because while these politicians and premiers play politics, 300,000 tourism businesses in Australia, mainly small and family-run businesses, are left in limbo. How many jobs are impacted? Like, you guys are our fourth biggest export, aren't you?
And the longer this goes on, the more obvious it is that this is an act of economic self-harm. At a time when international tourism is impossible, these states are turning their backs on domestic tourism.
Tourism bodies at the Gold Coast particularly are urging her to rethink those closures. They say that even if the border reopens in July, they'll still miss a chunk of that lucrative school holiday trade from southerners who come north for the winter.
Bordering on financial ruin, restaurants in Broadbeach are booked out but still struggling to turn a profit.
This is causing a mini recession on the Gold Coast that will go on for several years, we think.
Made much worse by uncertainty on the Premier's timeframe to reopen the border. Originally July 11, now perhaps September.
But what about parochialism? Have we seen many in the media buying the provincial arguments? Does local media have a different take? Would it back the border bans, even when they are at odds with the consistent advice from the National Chief Medical Officer?
There clearly is a fear from the Queensland Government about the impact of people coming from New South Wales and Victoria, given the rates of infection that have occurred here.
If you are hoping to travel to the East Coast anytime soon, forget it. New advice from WA's top health officer shows we'll be a hermit state for months. But the advice in our state border lockdown is at odds with the Federal Medical Chief's recommendation.
Like many other seniors, the former nurse is keen for the Territory's borders to remain closed.
I think we need to wait until that all states sort of settle down with their community spread before we open our borders.
The swimmers here say the low infection rates that have allowed them to get back into the pool so quickly are the envy of all their friends interstate.
Back off New South Wales. Our Premier couldn't be any clearer tonight, declaring Queensland won't be lectured on reopening our borders by the state with more coronavirus cases than any other.
Now, this is a tough issue for the Premier, but she should be encouraged by this. A 9 News Facebook poll asked, do you support the decision to keep the borders closed until September? 71% said yes, and just 29% disagree, saying no. The Premier's been very firm on this, and this result would appear to vindicate that stance.
Yep, a Facebook poll. Are we a federation or a collection of separate countries? I don't reckon the media made enough of this when it first happened. It shows how governments can overreach in a crisis and the media can get all caught up in the moment as well, bordering on complicity. But my prediction is the media will catch on quickly on this one as public attitudes change, and they'll be crucial in forcing backdowns.